So yeah, the most normal career path ever, right? Car dealership to talking about technology. But basically, where this whole effort started was as I had 21 car dealerships that I'd built in the last 13 years. And made a decision that I was going to go into a different business. So sold 13 of the dealerships so far. I have 8 now. And as I wound that operation down, the question became, what do I want to do next? And I'd been studying blockchain for the last couple of years, to about 2.5 years, when my son, who was at the time 17, came to me and said, Dad, I got one word for you, Bitcoin. And I'm like, what the hell is Bitcoin? And he had taken all the money he'd ever made, about $20,000 in his life, and invested in Bitcoin when it was at $600, and encouraged me to do the same thing. So I said, well, there's no way in hell I'm going to do that, because I didn't understand what Bitcoin was. But I started studying blockchain, and so as I thought about blockchain, it reminded me of when I lived in Boston before I moved to Cleveland during the 90s, when the dot-com world happened. There was a lot of activity going on. And everybody who I talked to, once I decided I was going to do these blockchain companies, said Cleveland is the worst place on earth to start a tech company. So everybody told me. All the smart people that I started myself told me that. So rather than accept that, we said, well, what would it take to make it so that people would say the exact opposite? That Cleveland's the best place to start any kind of tech company, especially a blockchain company. So we're familiar with where we are with Cleveland. You heard a lot about that today. Not going to go over that. Technology. When I went to college, technology was kind of the unusual kids that worked around with tech, right? And everybody kind of looked at it as like this frilly thing. Today, every company is a tech company. Every single company, we're all in the technology business, whether we recognize it or not. And if we don't innovate as a city in Cleveland, we will die. So going with the assumption that I love Cleveland, I don't want Cleveland to die, what do? Came up with this idea of Blockland. Why blockchain? Because blockchain is where the technology world is going. Now, it's not the cure for everything. I get a lot of people who send me nasty emails, Twitter messages, and say, you can't do this with blockchain. I'm like, yes, I'm aware. You can't ride a bike with blockchain, right? It's true. I know that. But what blockchain is where they're forecasting $10 trillion with a T of economic value to shift over the next 10 years. You can see why. It's everything that you've seen so far this morning. People want transparency, they want immutability, they want security, and they want trust when we do transactions online. So here's where we're at. If you remember the 90s during the dot-com phase, everything .com was worth $1 billion, and then it was worth 0. And there was this huge tech bubble that occurred in 1999, and everybody said, that does it, the technology business is done, we knew it, we're going to go back to manufacturing. And it wasn't until Google's IPO in 2004, and of course, today, the tech business is really, we have 2 companies, not just one, 2 companies that are worth $1 trillion today. So in blockchain, we're about 2 or 3 years away from full mainstream implementation, which gives Cleveland a chance to move to where the world is going to go. So if the world left us a long time ago in the 90s, and we missed that wave, we missed the social media wave, we missed the mobile phone wave, we've missed a lot of the technology shifts, we don't have to miss this one. So by positioning ourselves as hyper-relevant on the next iteration of blockchain, which is business and government applications, everybody understands the currency side, but currency is never going to be a strategic weapon for Cleveland, Ohio. Nobody's ever going to say, hey, that's the place I go to for absolute greatness in cryptocurrency, because that's going to be cities where typically already have that. Geneva, London, Singapore, et cetera. But we can be there when it comes to the business and government application side. So the vision of Blockland and the goals is pretty straightforward. We want jobs, 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 and jobs. We want this times 1,000, right? We want to have hundreds and hundreds of startups all over Northeast Ohio. You know, all these cities killing themselves to get Amazon, to me, that's the craziest thing on earth. We should be killing ourselves to get startup companies here, not trillion-dollar companies that are owned by the world's wealthiest man. And let's give him a $10 billion tax credit to boot. Boop, crazy. All right, so anyway, so here's what we created. So if you know anything about blockchain, there's a node, the idea that you're a node to this large network. So there's 10 nodes. You heard from one of our great nodes earlier today, John Penny, who's co-chairing the place node. Where does this thing physically happen? Where can you go and see this place. Charlie has a great expression called serendipitous collisions. I have to remind him that he came up with that. But every time I say it, I give him credit. The idea that you put people in a tight space and all of a sudden one person that was working on an idea or maybe had a failure runs into another person that maybe was working on a different idea that had a failure. But when they come together, a new amazing company is born. So where can we put startups, the highest level innovation people anywhere, and put it all together? And maybe even tie it in with what we call Genesis, which is a K through 12 school that I would send my kids to. That people from the suburbs would say, I'd rather send my kids to a Cleveland school than my local suburban school. And we tie it all in together. If we go around each one of those, I'll go through them quickly in the interest of time. So thought leadership, two co-chairs there. The idea is that Cleveland becomes the place known for blockchain when it comes to government and business applications. We have our conference December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So please sign up. The conference is $995, but because I'm a car dealer, right? Today only, no, just kidding. Between now and the end of the month, oh my God, that sounds even worse like a car dealer. Between now and the end of the month, you can sign up for $595. If you're a student, it's $100, and if you're a developer, it's $395. And to make it even better, we have really cool swag with Blockland if you sign up before the end of the month and you're from Cleveland. But after the conference, what happens? Which is a regular cadence of meetings around blockchain so that we become known as the place to go to for these great and innovative things. We have amazing speakers at the conference, including Satoshi Nakamoto, although that's not what he goes by. He goes by Nick Szabo, which is a college professor that I personally, and about 80% of the world, believes invented Bitcoin. So he's going to be coming to our conference, which is really cool. He doesn't go to very many. The next one is business applications. The idea that rather than just talk about blockchain, that we have at least 2 or 3 actual proof of concepts going on in Cleveland that we can point to and talk to. So that's what that group's working on, and leveraging our strengths to do that. Then we have talent development and retention. So it's not just talent development, it's talent development and retention. I was the chair of the board of Cleveland State University through May of this year. We graduated exactly 0 blockchain coders last year. So the goal of this effort is between all of our great universities, Kent State, Akron, Case, CSU, Tri-C, Drive IT, Tech Elevator, that we have 1,000 students that have some sort of certification in blockchain. And the great thing is with blockchain, it's not the highest level type of tech that you can do. If you know how to code in Java, you can code in blockchain. That's what that group's going to work on, is how do we create this pipeline. Entrepreneurial environment. To have a startup, looking at a group of some of you in startups, money sometimes gets in the way, right? So how do we create an environment where we have angel funds, we have venture A, venture B, venture C. You know, we have a big problem in this area here in Cleveland. Columbus has 7x more venture money than we do here in Cleveland, and Silicon Valley has 10x of that number. So you can tell what that means for Cleveland. So we have to mobilize our entrepreneurial people, our investors, to get them interested in blockchain type companies, so when people do come here, they can have a place to get some funding. Next Gen Node, one of our co-chairs is here. The idea is, if we're going to bring blockchain to life in Cleveland, we need young people to be thinking about a place as Cleveland as a place to stay if you're from here. So my 4 kids, I want them to stay in Cleveland. Well, actually, I want them to come back to Cleveland in my particular case, right? And then for people who've never been to Cleveland, we attract them. You can't do that if you don't have young people engaged in the effort. So one of the things I'm really proud of is that our #1 demographic in this Blockland effort, which is now over 1,500 people, is people under the age of 35, which is great. Political environment. Who saw the Facebook Senate testimony, right? On Comedy Central. It shouldn't be. They could just take that whole thing and make it a Saturday Night Live episode so we have nothing to add, right? So politicians are not typically very good on technology. So we have to get our policymakers and our politicians engaged earlier. Dr. Boutros is one of those that's chairing our political environment group. The idea is educate our policymakers so they know what they're doing. B, and most importantly, stay out of the way of technology. And C, become a customer for blockchain technology. Government is the best user of this technology. Government never went through the same transformation that the private sector went through. So they're ripe for disruption there. They do a lot of things incredibly inefficiently with paper. We can change that. And that, I think, will create the biggest gold rush of all, is if the city, the county, and the state say, hey, listen, we're going to open up our books. Private companies, come help us solve these problems that we do. How many of you have gotten your new Ohio driver's license? Right? It is a massive pain in the beep, right? So legal system. Whenever you create a new world, you create all kinds of new litigation. So one of the things that this group is working on, we took our 2 deans of our 2 amazing law schools, put them together, and said, A, let's find out how do we make certain that we have the most progressive laws for blockchain in the country, and secondly, how do we do some really innovative things in the legal space? I'll give you a couple of things that they're working on. Not 100% final, but some pretty cool things they're working on. Number 1, a blockchain or advanced information technology certification for lawyers. We'd be the only city in America that has that. Secondly, we'd have a blockchain or advanced information technology docket. So if there's a lawsuit involving this type of technology, you have a place to go to that you have judges that know this technology and understand it. We'd have the only docket like that anywhere in the U.S. Philanthropy. If you look at a study, in fact, I encourage all of you, so this is a pitch. I'll pause now for what I want everybody here to do. Go on our Blockland Facebook page and please join that community. It's over about 1,100 people now, so please do that. Great place to share articles and information. Secondly, of course, attend our conference. And third, advocate to the policymakers or people that you see around town for this thing. So what they're doing is making sure that we catalyze this effort and that people don't get left behind. And then finally, research and innovation. Creating a research and digital futures hub at CASE with CSU involved. You heard about John Penny of Place. And that's it. That's Blockland. Charlie, back to you.